We dream big because we serve a big God. Looking back at 4 years now, I can say with complete assurance that there is nothing impossible with God. What started as just a dream with 7 people in a living room led us to taking our first faith step in leasing a warehouse office space off the beaten path on Shira Court with no AC, and still people being drawn and coming and God leading them to a place of hope and healing and restoration. And we were reaching the lost and unchurched people at crazy numbers. We had to go to 2 services in this warehouse, and we outgrew that 2 services, and there was a challenge now. I mean, we had this huge dream of impacting our city, of being a church planting church, of having a big vision, but small resources and a small space. And so the Lord really opened up an opportunity for us to be able to expand right where we're at. But it took, again, another faith step. It was really our second faith challenge that God put before us. And it had to do with knocking down a wall that some people didn't want really knocked down at the time it was knocked down.
There was no room in that building. We were packed out, and we knew the only way that we could accommodate more growth is if we either got a new building or Pastor had this crazy idea of knocking the wall down. I'm more logical, so I start thinking, okay, if we knock a wall down, we're gonna have to, clean it up. We're gonna have to get a bigger stage. And so I'm thinking, let's wait a week let's just think about it and see if this is the right thing to do.
I grabbed a hammer and put a hole in the wall. Through that, we just saw God continue to provide. We got ACs, we got new projection equipment, sound equipment, rebuilt the stage, new seating, doubled our capacity. And we continued to grow into year 2 and 3. We continued to grow, and we're at eventually 3 services. But then something hit us. It was another turn of events, a bad turn of events, really. We lost that kid space where our kids were meeting at, the sublease that we had. We lost it. They were no longer able to meet there. So we were had to put our kids in a tent in the parking lot in Bakersfield heat on asphalt with coolers in there. Coolers, I mean, it helped a little bit, but this was a huge challenge for us. And we were praying, seeking God, knowing that this challenge was there. It was intentional because God was moving us elsewhere. So during this season, we were looking for another location, looking for space, because obviously this one is no longer conducive to do what God is calling us to do. And in that process, we came across this building on White Lane that is just beautiful, never been occupied for 7.5 years, but totally outside of our price range, totally outside of our resources to build it out and to do all the work of it. But we believe that God was calling us to take yet another faith step in our journey. And by the grace and favor of God, we got 7103 White Lane. And in the middle of building out this 11,000 square foot building that we did not have the resources to build out, God is tugging on our hearts that now is the season to plant a church. And I get introduced to a guy named Matthew Delgadillo.
I'm at a conference with some of my buddies and my wife, and I come upon an old friend of mine, Pastor Daniel, and we got to talking, and he now is doing youth at Discovery Church at this point in time. And he's like, bro, you got to meet Pastor Jason. He's here. And I'm like, yeah, man, let me meet this guy. Let me see what this is all about. And I was able to meet him, and he made this comment that I'll never forget. And it was an invitation to coffee, and that's not what I won't forget. What I won't forget is that he actually kept the appointment. He made the appointment immediately. I was like, yeah, sure. Normally pastors, people in ministry, they say like, oh yeah, let's have a meeting. But it's never like, hey, this is happening. And so I just thought nothing of it until he said, okay, cool, Tuesday. And I was like, all right, Tuesday it is. So we meet at a Starbucks, and he begins to share with me his dream and his vision for this network of churches that don't just exist, but churches that are life-giving and want to plant other life-giving churches. And as he's sharing the heart of the Discovery Network, I'm realizing more and more, and God is confirming inside of me more and more that his heart is my heart. That the heart of the Discovery Network has always been what I wanted to do. I wanted to plant a church that planted other churches because I wanted to reach the world. In fact, the first message that I ever preached was a message called Love God, Love Each Other, and Change the World. And now we're a part of it.
I remember meeting with Pastor Jason at Starbucks, and it seems to be his favorite place to meet, mine too, but I remember meeting with him, and he was explaining his vision of a mission center that God had given him a dream of, and this mission center would provide after-school tutoring and computers to students and mentorship to students in the community and outreach. And I've been doing student ministry for many years, and as he was explaining his vision to me, in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking, this is everything that God has placed in my heart. This is everything that I've been dreaming for so many years. And at that moment, I realized this is a God moment right here. God has connected me with Discovery to carry out the purpose of reaching out to students in our community through missions and through outreach and through after-school programming and mentorship.
And now, 4 years later, look what God is doing. He's honoring faith steps that are being taken. Discovery Church in Camarillo went with nothing, and God has provided a building for us that we launched with on Easter Sunday. We've launched Discovery Church Espanol at our old location in Shirah. We've started Discovery Church in Indian ministry, reaching the Hindi and Punjabi-speaking population right here in Bakersfield. We've trained 24 pastors and leaders through the Discovery School of Emerging Leaders. This year alone, we've seen 773 salvations. That's more than the previous 3 years combined. Our 4-year total of souls being saved is 1,457. We've seen 206 people publicly declare their faith in baptism. This last year, we adopted the Kenya Kids Orphanage. 64 kids are being fed and given Christian education who would otherwise not have it. We dream big because we serve a big God. Look what God has done. But we haven't arrived yet, and we won't stop dreaming. In this next year, God is calling us to stretch and believe further than we have ever stretched and believed before. The first focus area is the Dream Center Bakersfield. This year, we're going to launch a Dream Center in the middle of Bakersfield that is going to minister to the hungry, the homeless, the human trafficked, the addicted, and it's going to be a beacon of hope for our city. And our vision has always been to be a church planting church and to reach all of Bakersfield. So next year in the fall, we're launching Discovery Church Northwest. This campus will have live teaching, worship, kids ministries. It'll be the same reflection and DNA of Discovery Church. We're going to send a church planting team into the Arab world to take the gospel to places that it has never been before. This team is being sent to Egypt to get the resources, the training, the development that they need to plant churches where there are none. And this year, we're going to extend our reach and support in Africa and adopt another orphanage where we're going to be providing for 40 more kids, not only feeding them, but giving them Christian education. We are a part of a movement that is changing the world. And I invite you to believe with us, dream with us, and step out with us in faith.